Hey guys, welcome to 6 Minutes for Thursday, December 8th. I'm Jason Fulmore, SC Wrestle, and we are smack dab in the middle of the season, especially in some of our states. Florida's just kicking off. Last weekend was their first weekend as far as tournaments go and that sort of thing. But yeah, things are starting to ramp up, and we know they are because what to watch this week focuses on some tournaments that are routinely the ones that we look at as we gear up into the month of December. And for a lot of people, that means that it is Ironman week. It is the week in which there's a pilgrimage to Walsh Jesuit High School in Ohio by many of the best programs and best wrestlers from around the country. Walsh and the Ironman are one of the top high school tournaments in the country, and this year is no different. If you've gotten a chance to look at Flow Wrestling's list of all the kids who are ranked and so on and so forth, yeah, it's a who's who. It's going to be a lot of fun. It starts tomorrow. You can watch it live on Flow Wrestling. And yeah, we've got a Southeast group that are headed to the Ironman, and hoping that they will show out, wrestle exceptionally well, and all of that. So let's. I'm going to flip this over and talk a little bit about it. We our biggest crews, obviously, are Lake Highland Prep, who are bringing 13 to the Ironman up in Ohio. Baylor has a crew headed to Baylor from Tennessee, headed to the Ironman. There are 8 of them on that list as well. And then we have, Palmetto Ridge, Lake Gibson, Jensen Beach. I think it's just Sebastian De Janeiro from Jensen Beach heading up there. Surrey Central, which should have just Jeremiah Price from North Carolina heading up there. And then Greenville, Tennessee. In fact, I think the boys from Greenville, Hunter Mason, Carson Duple, Colin Duple, all 3 of them are in the pre-seeds of ones to watch heading into the tournament. Carson had a really good win over Bryson Terrell last weekend, and I think he's pre-seeded at 113 pounds. Yeah, he's preceded number 11 at 113 pounds. And Tyler Washburn is preceded at number 13 at 113 pounds. But it is Hunter Mason and Colin Duple who actually, I think, come in the highest precedes of anyone in the Southeast. Hunter is, let's take a look, is preceded number 5 at 138. I can't imagine him being 138 pounds, but that's what he's listed at. We also haven't seen him back on the mat in quite some time, so really interested to see Hunter back on the mat and competing for an Ironman title. Also in that group is Elijah Rivera from Lake Highland Prep, who comes in preceded number 8. And then I think the highest ranked pre-seed is Colin Duple, who comes in number 4 at 144 pounds behind Mac Church, Brock Herman, Sam Cartella, ahead of Kale Voinovich, and so on and so forth. Look for the young bucks from Baylor to show out. Omari Alvarez, who is now the senior on that team. But it's going to be really interesting to watch Hunter Sturgill and Logan Paradise and Nate Askew and all of them go up and compete, because I think they're all sophomores, so they have a few more years to kind of to make a run for an Ironman title as well. Anyway, I say all this, and I want you to know that you can go to SE Wrestle, and there's a link to the Walsh Jesuit website. And on the website, they have a list of all the pre-seeds. They are pre-seeds at the moment. Obviously, they weigh in tomorrow and get started tomorrow morning. And at that point in time, we'll kind of have a better sense of what the bracket will look like. But yeah, expect a great tournament. It always brings a lot of action, some top quality wrestling. And for those of you who don't know, you're maybe new to wrestling, high school wrestling, that sort of thing, the Ironman is one of the best events around. So anyway, so lots of kids headed up to Walsh Jesuit up in Ohio. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a ton of action right here in the Southeast. So let's talk a little bit about maybe what to watch if you are here in the Southeast in one of the several states. So let's begin in the state of Alabama. And there aren't a ton of tournaments listed in the state of Alabama on track or flow, but two really stood out, and that is the Spartan Invitational at Mountain Brook. 27 teams from Alabama, obviously, Tennessee, even got Palm Bay listed from Florida. One of the top 1A programs in the state of Florida is listed. It will be interesting to see if they come up and how they compete. The other tournament is the Swedenbach Invitational at Auburn. 23 teams, because it sits right down there in Auburn. We have a lot of Georgia teams, a lot of Alabama teams coming over the border to meet in what should be a fantastic tournament down at Auburn. For those of you who don't know, Swedenbach is a legend as it relates to high school wrestling, college wrestling across the Southeast. Really one of the founders and of an Auburn program that grew to super high heights as far as not Auburn High School, but Auburn University, or the University of Auburn, and they Swedenbach was the architect there. Really brought wrestling from the Midwest down into the Southeast and had a huge impact. So Swedenbach Invitational at Auburn this weekend should be fantastic as well. All right, let's head south to Florida, and just like every single other weekend, Florida has 10,000 tournaments. No, I'm kidding. They have a lot of tournaments. There's a lot going on down in the state of Florida. When I coached there, we went to the Kingsley Classic this weekend. We went to the Captain Archer down on the southwest coast of Florida. You have let me make sure I flip this over and sorry, old school. You have Fit to Win at Countryside, and you have the 41st annual Kiwanis Invitational at Hernando, 30 teams. I must have wrestled in one of the first ever Kiwanis Invitationals at Hernando that long ago. But yeah, that's a fantastic tournament. But if I was in the state of Florida, I'm definitely popping in to the Danny Byron at Osceola High School. South Dade comes up. It is always a very, very tough tournament. Lake Gibson will be there, although it won't be the Lake Gibson crew that obviously is up at the Ironman in Ohio. But still, a lot of really good kids, some super good teams at the Danny Byron this weekend. Yeah, definitely one to watch. So some really good girls tournaments around the state as well. And this is where I'm not 100% sure, like the Grenadier Girls Grappler at Colonial, if you look at it online on Track Wrestling, it's got a ton of teams. There are a lot of teams competing in it. Now, what do those teams look like? The level of competition that is gonna happen, it's hard to say, but definitely one to watch down in the state of Florida. State of Georgia. So this is it's a little frustrating as far as tracking information in the state of Georgia because so few teams or so few tournaments are on track or on Flow and in Flow Arena. The Aaron Kirkland Invitational at Buford, traditional teams up in that area coming together at Buford for that invitational. We'll see Rockmart come over as well. But I think that at least the one, and I say this because there might be a really good tournament that isn't on track, that isn't on Flow, that is happening, and we simply don't have a ton of information about it. But One of the ones that is always the always tough South Metro. This year at East Coweta, it has 26 teams from South Metro part of Atlanta, and should be a fantastic a tournament once again. All right, let's jump up to South Carolina. And, you know, I'm a huge fan after watching the Fort Mill kids wrestle at the Southern Slam. They always have such a really good, they always put on a really, really good tournament. And this year is no different. The Kingsley Classic at Fort Mill. For me, if I was in South Carolina, that would be the one that I would drop in at and try to take in all of the action. There's others, Silver Fox Invitational at Dutch Fork, Ram Invitational at Hillcrest, tournament at Hartsville, so on and so forth. But Kingsley Classic at Fort Mill should be fantastic. All right, let's head up to North Carolina. And, you know, this is where maybe sometimes having a ton of teams doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily the best tournament. The Falcon Frenzy at West Henderson, I mean, on paper, it brings in 30 teams from North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Virginia, and they paired it right alongside a women's Falcon Frenzy tournament that has teams from North Carolina, South Carolina, and some really good teams from Tennessee. So the Falcon Frenzy is definitely one to watch, but I think that if we were going to just pop into one tournament, I might pop into the Bobby Abernathy tournament at Piedmont. You have Cata, Mount Pleasant, obviously Piedmont, Pinecrest, Porter Ridge, Scotland, and a bunch of other teams. Maybe not as many teams as you see at the Falcon Frenzy, but the level of competition at Bobby Abernathy Invitational should be fantastic. Just like the state of Florida, North Carolina has a ton of tournaments listed this weekend, and you can check back in at SC Wrestle for links to all of those results, and I'll try to get those posted. Doesn't look like I will be at any tournament this weekend, trying to catch up on a few different things after being in South Carolina last weekend, and as a result, I should be able to get things posted a little bit faster than I was last week, given the fact that I was traveling back and everything else. All right, our last state, and probably, I don't know, maybe the best tournaments around the Southeast are happening in the state of Tennessee. The McCallie Invitational, I was there last year, always puts on a good show. Really, really tough competition. McCallie's bringing in 30 teams from Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and obviously Tennessee. It's always a tough tournament, definitely one to watch. The Smoky Mountain Duels are also extremely interesting, as are the Cleveland Duels, who have now pretty much begun to bring in some of the top teams from Georgia and Tennessee, and they're going to go at it. I think, obviously Cleveland and Bradley Central are there, but you have West Forsyth from Georgia. You have a few other teams coming up from Georgia. Cleveland Duels are going to be great as well. And then the last is the Indian Classic. And again, if you don't really follow it, this is the weekend of the Indian Classic up in, is it Kingsport? I'm not 100% sure. 28 teams routinely bring in a lot of states because of its location. You've got Alabama teams, Georgia teams, South Carolina teams, Tennessee teams, as well as teams from states we don't normally see, and that is Virginia and West Virginia will all be down to compete at the Indian Classic. It's another really good tournament, and definitely one to watch. So, yeah, just if you have an opportunity, go out and support high school wrestling across the Southeast. It should be fantastic to watch this weekend. Some really good tournaments. And the last thing, that I'll leave you with, is we have a few D1 college duels that you should pay attention to. I think Saturday night? Iowa comes into Chattanooga, visits the Mocs, and it'll be interesting to see how Chattanooga kind of fares with an Iowa team that just finished with Iowa State. So, that'll be interesting. And then Sunday afternoon, a battle of maybe top 10 programs as Missouri heads to Blacksburg, Virginia, to take on Virginia Tech in what should be another fantastic duel. Definitely two ones to watch here in the Southeast if you happen to get that opportunity. Hope you guys have a wonderful one. Safe travels and best of luck this weekend. And yeah, we'll be watching. Take care. Bye.